Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. I am so excited about today's chat and learn session. I can't wait to dive in. And I just begin with, if you don't know me, my name is Jasmine Campos, and I am a Power to Fly ambassador. As a Power to Fly ambassador, I get to produce these cool monthly virtual meetups. If this is something that you think you'd be interested in, make sure to check out powertofly.com/ambassador for more information. And so this is a cool topic that we're getting into. There's a lot that we want to cover. Before we begin, though, we will go ahead and go a few housekeeping items. All right. So we do encourage for y'all to participate. If you want to ask a question, just go ahead and ask to come off mute to ask your question. But I must warn you that you will come out on our live recording of this session. It is being recorded. If you rather not come out on our live recording, just go ahead and write in your question in the chat, and I can go ahead and ask it for you. Being said that this is being recorded, you don't have to worry about writing down anything, any notes or anything like that, because we'll send you an email with the link to the video, so you'll be able to watch it at your leisure. So don't worry about that. And lastly, I just ask to keep up with us on social media. Make sure you check out our Power to Fly Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook account. And also don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel. And now for the presentation of my lovely guest, Marcia Lima. Marcia Lima is a senior backend software engineer at F1 Payments, and she also has 15 years experience working for high scale system. She has navigated in different roles on coding and application support. So welcome, Marcia. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
Yay. Anything I might have missed? Anything you would like to share with our audience?
Um, I just would like you to share how we met.
Oh, okay. Yes. Thank you. So Marsha and I actually met in our own Power to Fly event, and we shared our LinkedIn profiles right during a chat session. And I remember we reached out to each other, and right around that time that we decided to meet is when the freeze happened here in Texas. And so I remember we were going back and forth that day because my cell wasn't working, and if it was just a big old mess. But we somehow powered through, and we were able to meet that day. And so that's when I went ahead and I heard her story, of being originally from Brazil, coming to the US. At that point, she was looking for a role and, a fitting role for her since she had so much experience. And so I remember talking back and forth about that and, about the strategy that she was taking to be able to do so. So I just loved her story right off the bat. At that time, I was going through my own training to become a Power to Fly ambassador. So I knew that I wanted to have her as a guest immediately. So I told her, I'm going to have you as a guest for one of my events. And she complied. So I'm very happy. Thank you so much, Marcia.
Thank you.
Okay, so when some of you RSVP to the event, you were able to write down if you wanted to ask her a question, and if you couldn't think of anything at the point, don't worry. There will be an opportunity to go ahead and ask a question, but we will begin with the questions that were sent to us during that RSVP. Okay, our first question is: at what age did you started programming?
So this is interesting. I was born and raised in a small town in Brazil, and the first computer that my family got, I was 16 years old. So I was not too young, and we didn't have internet. So at the time, we had a lot of courses on how to use Microsoft products like Excel, Word, and things like that. So my first experience with programming, it was at 17. So there was one course that was available using Pascal at the time, so a very, very old language that nobody uses anymore. And it was fun. So it had some elements that I liked. I enjoyed math. I enjoyed how the logical parts worked, and so that was my first experience. And then I attended a university for computer science, so that's when I really got it into programming and having the experience with all kinds of different strategies and areas that we use in IT.
That is awesome. At that time where you were interested in programming, um, were there any like self-doubt thoughts that maybe you had along the way? Maybe you weren't seeing a lot of women in classes, anything like that?
It happens until today, Jasmine. So it's when I started university, we had for the classes that I had, we had 65 colleagues. Only six of them were women, and some gave up the course in the middle. So it's something that happens, and sometimes it gets to 10%. Sometimes we can see that in universities, we see a presence of women in IT related areas less than 10%. And it's a reality. And sometimes we think, okay, it needs to get better. And still, there are some issues that prevent women to pursue a technology career.
And hopefully events such as this one help, right, to open the eyes of some women that they might be thinking about it, but after viewing something like this they might get encouraged and just go for it. So
Yeah.
yes, let's do
So
this.
yeah, what helped me a lot during university, it was I had a professor that was holding a research on Java, so the programming language that I use until today. And she was awesome, and she gave me a lot of hope and hopeful thoughts, and and she introduced me to many former students of her that were working in the area. So it was really important to see that we could have a voice and we could have a place.
Yes, we do have a voice and we do have a place. Yes. Okay, let me go ahead and ask the next question. What differences do you see in gender bias and challenges for women between the different IT markets you worked in?
Okay, so I would like to ask the people that are watching, how many of you are left-handed? If there are any left-handed people.
Lee said she is. Okay.
One. Okay,
One.
so um, is there any object that you hate using being left-handed? Any tool, anything that you use in your daily life that it's really bad?
Large desks were the worst. Also, potato peeler.
Exactly. So my first thing about the bias, if you only have engineers that are right-handed, no one will think about the challenges that you have being left-handed. So this happens. My mom is left-handed, so it was a nightmare with a lot of stuff at home because she could not use it properly, or if sometimes if she uses some knives, then the edges were not um, okay for me to use after that. And it's really important to see that we have to have other views in in the way we have the products developed. So if we use only right-handed engineers to produce a product, or if we don't engage left-handed people to test the product beforehand, we are taking out of our consumers about 10% of the world population. So that's roughly the number of left-handed people in the world. And it's true for any product and for any software as well. And in my career, I worked in different areas. So I was a developer, and then I worked in application support, working with customer 500 from Fortune. Um, and uh, I worked later on with a little bit of purchase to pay and also production planning, like automation for assembly of products. And now I'm in the fintech world. So what happens is, by the time I worked in development, um, it was usually just me in the teams working with software. And there was a huge distinction by the time I worked with teams that they have. Um, the company had some quality assurance team separately. So it was practically everyone assumed that I worked with quality assurance because I was a woman. So anyone that didn't know me assumed that I could not code. Uh, and this happened for a while until they see, okay, she's here to stay. Um, and this bias happens everywhere. And when I worked with customers, so I worked with customers from different parts of the world, and they have consultants from other places, and the culture plays a big part on this. So sometimes if I had to call a customer to go over a more complex issue, they would be surprised that a woman was working with them. So they would have second thoughts. If I had just written communication with them, there was no doubt about my work. If I got on the phone, then they saw, okay, it's a woman, probably her work is not the best. Um, so it's not something that will happen only in a particular area or not. So, I mean, when I worked with human resources, we see that in the front end, in the end user aspect of it, human resources is majority women, but in the software business for it that I worked specifically, it's a majority of men. And then their culture, um, the company culture plays a lot of items on this. And it's not a simple issue and it's not a simple solution. So I've seen many companies, okay, we are investing to have more women as leaders. And turns out that we could see more women in leadership in marketing, in sales, in customer support, but not in engineering areas. So even when they tried hard, there is a huge um, bias for companies to see that women can be good engineers and they could be good leaders.
That's interesting. I like your analogy as far as like who is left-handed, because I think I'm a very visual person. So as soon as you said that, I'm like, okay, yeah, I could picture it, like how there's that disconnect. So truly, representation matters. Representation in women in tech, minorities in tech, because you're obviously going to be getting a different perspective than what you are getting when you don't bring in this different points of view. But yes.
Yeah, and there is one more thing I would
Mm-hmm.
like to ask people to participate.
Okay.
If I tell you that there was a woman that founded a company in the 60s when software development were mostly perforated cards, so huge mainframes, and her company achieved $3 billion, would you know her name? Or would you believe I'm being honest and telling this story?
I'm not familiar with the story, so no, I did not know.
So I see here, so Shirazad is a good friend of mine. So yes, it's Steve. Her name is Stephanie Shirley. She's a dame. She's from England. She's not from England itself. Her story is beautiful. So she founded this company, and she had to sign contracts with the name Steve because if she put Stephanie, no company would sign a contract with a company that was,
Wow.
um, held by a woman. And
Wow.
she's fantastic. So one of the topics that I left as something else, I would tell you to go and watch her TED Talk. It's 7 minutes long, and I think it's the most beautiful story of a female entrepreneur that I've heard in my life. And I went ahead and I read her biography. So I put a recommendation there as well. So comparing to that, if I say Facebook and Twitter, everyone would know their founder names, right? Their CEO names.
Mm-hmm.
So there is a huge difficulty for women to go up in the career or to be recognized by their work. There is also a research that was done in Bay Area that surprised me a lot. So the name is Elephant in the Valley. It's about women reaching glass ceiling. So they would not be promoted from a part, and they presented a piece in South by Southwest here in Austin on this research. So it has the craziest stuff that I wouldn't, imagine that happened. So one of the things that astonished me is that there were women that are natural blondes that would dye their hair darker because they would be taken more seriously because of that. So you see the extent that some women had to do to be heard in a meeting or in a business contract. And so they have a lot of good numbers. They did this research. It's all online, and I left the links for you to check later.
I once you said her name, I realized that was some of the research that you're going to be sharing with us later. Yes, everyone, we do have this research for you at the end, so you'll be able to write down her name. Not right now, right? Because you're going to get a recording of this. So at your leisure, you'll be able to do so. Okay, let's go ahead and go into the next question. So next question is, what are the challenges you face looking for a job in the US market after years of work in another country?
So the way job searching in the US works is really, really tiresome. So I would say that it's more work than actual work. And it took me a lot of time to get what I had to do. So one of the things that didn't happen to me before is follow-ups. So normally from my culture in Brazil, if we agree something, if you tell me that I will be back in touch in 2 weeks and you don't get back in touch, I would say, okay, I can wait. And here is a practice to follow up, and it's mostly seen as that you were really interested in something. So I had to change my mindset, to do this frequent follow-ups with the recruiters, with hiring managers, reaching out to people in LinkedIn. That is something that I've never done before, and that was a big challenge.
Yeah, so that's interesting as far as a culture wise, right? Because you're used to a certain way, and then you go to a different country, and the process is different. So obviously, if you are looking to go and work in a different country, it might be helpful, right, to connect with some people there. Maybe ask some of the process of what to look for if you're searching for a job there. Good point. Okay, let's go on with the next question. In the process of looking for a new job, what type of reskills did you have to do?
So my former experience was mostly with big companies and using of proprietary technology. And so it's a trend that it's not common in the markets today. So for those who are planning to start an IT career, be sure that you have to study all the time. So you have to learn new things. For me, this is awesome. I love learning new stuff. So I got to go back and do a lot of algorithm retraining in different programming languages. I had to go and read about how cloud architecture, public cloud architecture worked, because normally what I had was proprietary and inside the company, and I didn't have to worry about some aspects of it. I had to be on top of security topics that were not part of my daily job. So, you have, when you look for a job, and with what niche or what type of company or what type of business you want to work on, you have to check what are the offerings, the job offerings they have, what they are asking for, and then you have to go and deep dive into the technical items that they are asking, and also the uh, new things that you are not using in your daily life. And apart from
Mhm.
yeah sorry and apart for that, with the pandemic, I had to join a lot of online events and networking, and this was, I think, a new skill that everyone had to learn.
Yes, I agree with that. Part of me joining Power to Fly and becoming an ambassador was for that, so that I can just get used to this new way of communicating with others and keeping in touch. With that, let's go ahead and go into your next question. And okay, this is not the last one. Okay. I thought this was the last one, because then before that one, we'll go into the resources. But no, this is not the last one. So let me go ahead and ask, share this. Okay. If I want to go into IT, what software do you recommend I study or look into?
So I think this is a question that everyone has, and I think this is not a straightforward answer. So normally when you ask a programmer which language should I study or which part should I go, they will tell you the ones that they most like. And in reality, it is you have to use the right tools for the right problems, right? So the first thing you need to think is, do I want to code? If I want to code, is this for a backend, so where you plan all the services and you handle a lot of data and you handle performance issues, or do I want to go to front end where I can create nice things that will run on browsers, and I will have to make sure that everything works in Chrome, in Safari, and in Microsoft Edge or any other browser. So this will lead you to what technical skills you need to learn. And also, IT has changed so many, and it's changing so fast that there are many different roles that you may also need to think about. So UX is one very important role, to make sure that the tools that we are creating meet the expectations of the users. There is also now a lot of people that work with infrastructure and how to make services to be available all the time. You have to plan if you wanted to work with databases, and then you have many different flavors of databases to work with as well. Um, and the first item I would say to you, if you want to work with coding, start seeing how a code looks like. There are some many projects and many projects for children that are out there that you can use to see how things get together. So what I say from top of my mind, if you want to work with some automation or with hardware and how to make um, software that will connect to machines, C is a node, a language, but it's still very powerful and used, and it's very difficult. Um, if you want to work with front end, um, JavaScript is a must, and there are a lot of frameworks on top of this. So I think the most used at the moment is React and Redux, and you need to go and try to find resources on this. So there are a lot of online courses available for those. If you want to work with data science, that is something that I didn't talk about earlier. So there are a lot of libraries that are available in Python. So it's a language that is sometimes it's the setup to start using it. It's a little bit easier to do. So it's a good language to check. And the most important thing I would say is that you have to know the basics. I think most of the companies are now more flexible to hire people that do not have a formal college or university education. And you can go to boot camps and things like that. But you have to have a good knowledge on the basis of programming. So, what is an algorithm? What data structures are around? And there are some training sites where you can use to go ahead and start coding in different languages, and they will help you to get this sense of how to start a program, how to make sure this is a good solution, a fast solution, and most thing most important thing for me, I think, it's to make sure you test your software. So along with programming, you have to learn how you can test your software. um, and this is something I always used to say, the word overconfidence. So there are a lot of programmers that are overconfident that their code is perfect and it will work, but there are always some side scenario that will make things break, and if you break something in production, it's always a nightmare. So I one thing I think helped me a lot in my experience is to have the to be humble, that I can make a bad thing, and it's not intentional, but I can avoid this if I test it correctly, and I will stress it at the most. And there are some companies that they say, okay, it's you just need to test this, that's not important. But I would say that the same amount of time that you invest coding, you need to invest testing to make sure it works and it will not break or cause a problem.
That is so interesting. It seems so counterintuitive to not test. you know, to,
But but out there there are many
yeah.
many items and or many company cultures that they will reduce, um, estimating the time effort you have to build
hmm
something. It's not an exact science, and sometimes when the coding of a software delayed, the part that we miss the time where they cut, it's the test, and then we know that the quality will be affected.
hmm Now, as you were speaking about training and whatnot, I did think of a question. And so, is there any certification that you know of that you would recommend for someone to look into if they do want to have a certification? Because sometimes I feel I'm that type of person that I feel like I need to have a certification before I feel confident enough that I can do this work. So, I'm just wondering if you have any information on that.
So most of the technologies and programming languages, they have some certifications around. uh, I would say that some companies really value this, while others they just don't care. So most of the job selections right now, they have um, some code challenge that you need to do live. So with talking to people and creating your code. So I think it's more important that you know how to code and you know how to test, and you know you train a lot to make the best of algorithms than having a certification to tell you, okay, this person knows this language or this person knows this technology. And sometimes when you change from one company to another, they have contracts with other companies and they use different technologies, and your certification will not be worth. So the first thing is, I would say, check if the company that you were working or you were aiming to work for value certifications, then invest the time for this. But overall, I would say that making sure that you can code and create a good algorithm, it's much more important.
Awesome. Thank you for that. Okay, so now we are going to our last question. But this is the one that afterwards we do have resources that Marsha is going to go over. And so the question is, what advice would you give someone wanting to pivot into IT?
So, like I told before, IT is yet a very white male environment, and we need some diversity to have different opinions, to have different perspectives to create better products, and to hit more consumers on that. So, I would tell, try it. Even if you don't know, okay, you can give a try to see if you like it. Um, there is like you asked me if I had self-doubt. I think anyone that works with coding has self-doubt all the time, because there are days that you are concentrating and you are doing the best, but the things are not working, and it happens to every single person. And there are days that you feel awesome. I could finish this. I could make it work. This didn't break anything. Um, so it's an area that I would first tell you, be prepared to have highs and lows, but persevere. Try. Go a little longer. Go one time, one step at a time. Go at your own pace. There are people that will go faster, but you need to persevere, and you have a good, I think, um, with 15 years working in this area, I have more good times and I had wonderful colleagues. So it's even the lows that I had, they do not count too much today.
Nice. And yes, it's evident, right? A lot of the colleagues that you worked with before and currently work with, they're here to show support. So that speaks volumes. Okay, Marcia. So I'm sharing the slide with the different resources that you want to share with everyone. Do you want to go over these so that people know what to
Yes,
look for?
I will have some more minutes of your time. So the first thing is this TED Talk from Stephanie Shirley, and it completely changed my perspective when I knew her story and I read her book. Elephant in the Valley is the research on the Bay Area of women in leadership in tech space. There was something that happened. 3 years ago, if I'm not mistaken, 3 or 4 years ago, there was a Victoria's Secret model that she had a major in computer science, and she had a terrible uh, social media attack from bullies and harassment, telling her that she could not code, and she had great numbers in Stack Overflow. That is one of the most used websites that we have. So it's things like this that we need to plan ahead, and it's good to see. And there was one thing I didn't mention also that I think it's important. So I think it was in the 70s, orchestras started to do blind auditions to hire new musicians, because before they had a huge difference between men and women in orchestras, because they would have the person in a stage with open curtains. Once they closed the curtains and they could tell if this was a man or a woman, they have now almost average men and women in orchestras. So when possible, try, even if we think, okay, I'm not biased. Everyone is biased. It's our culture. So try to make a blind assessment of something, a blind assessment of a coding, not to, discard a woman just because your beliefs. Um, Here is the biography of Stephanie Shirley. And about professional development, like I told you, IT is an area that you need to be updated and you need to read and you need to um, at least learn what is going on and the changes that we do. So one thing that I put here, it's turning 20 years this year, is the Agile Manifesto. So it completely changed the way the world started coding and planned projects. And the 12 principles they did back in 2001, they are still valid and they are still there. So it's a good resource to see what we are still trying to achieve. It's not simple, and many people that say, okay, we work with Agile, that's not true. So it's good to have these principles and understand um, what is necessary to make a good product with software. um, the technology radar from ThoughtWorks is a really good resource. So one of the co-signers of the Agile Manifesto, so Martin Fowler, he is the one of the persons from ThoughtWorks that manages this, and there are huge high scale professionals that write books on some technology. So it's a really good resource to understand trends and understand what is going on with the IT market. And the other one of the others that worked on the Agile Manifesto is Robert Martin. So he's known as Uncle Bob. So if you search in YouTube for Uncle Bob, you'll find many of his the events that he held, and it's always good to watch. Even if you say, okay, this is old, this guy is awesome. So he has a huge work on clean code and clean architecture and clean Agile. So he tries, uh, his work is focused on creating good software and maintainable software and extensible software. So this is something that every professional in IT should learn.
Um, I was gonna say for sure I love TED Talk, so I am for sure gonna check out that one. Dame Stephanie Shirley. I'm very interested in knowing her story as well. Okay, let me go ahead and go to our next. Yeah, so for tips and advice.
So I think it's really important that professional. If you are studying in IT, also know professionals and understand what they work and how they use technology. And everyone that is passionate about their jobs, they will tell you a lot of interesting stuff. So try to be engaged in meetups. There are women who code chapters in major cities. There is one here in Austin, so they have a Slack channel, and it's really good to see what goes on. So there is a website that is Alpha. It's a platform, and it's really interesting because sometimes when you see issues with some type of recruiting, the women will go there and tell, okay, this company is not okay. It's question making some questions that should not happen and things like that. So it's a good resource. It's different from Glassdoor, that is overall. Alpha is more for women that are trying to land a job in IT. There are some events for hiring people, but normally you can network and meet a lot of interesting people like HackerX. There is a version of HackerX for diversity. Power2Fly has lots of events. I've met many people through these events, and they have the diversity summit and lots of things like that. And there is a conference here in the US that is the Grace Hopper. So for those who don't know the history of Grace Hopper, so she's considered the mother of system engineering, or the term, and she's the person that named bug a bug because she actually found a live bug in an old computer. So it's really interesting to see her name as well. And other tip that I would say, that people that start coding and do not know how to get some traction or how to learn more, get involved, try to help other people. So there is this Jungle Girls. It's another framework on top of Python, and they have this preset course that they held for women. It's free and normally it's sponsored by companies. And even if you do not know how to code, you want to start, get in one of those. You want to help somehow, they translate this course everywhere in the world. So if you know a language and they do not have the content translator or parts of the content is not translated, go there and help out. So there is some other topics more for children and teenagers. So there is this Code with Classie. So Carly Kloss, the model, and now I think she's just an entrepreneur. She has this project to get more women into coding, and the projects run in many cities. Code.org is a self-paced training that you can do with if you have kids with your kids, so they know the basics of how to create a program. And here in Austin we have Latinitas. It's a project also to foster more Latina children into technology.
You for sharing all these amazing resources. And I know a lot of people are going to be very grateful. So thank you for that. Let's go ahead and now we can open up the forum. If anyone has a question that you would like to ask Marsha, please go ahead, either ask to be on mute or you could put it here on the chat and we could go ahead and ask Marsha that question. What interest in software development in particular versus any other engineering fields?
So one of the things Jasmine told in the first is that it's important to have models. So I have, he's alive, so I have a cousin. He is 10 years older than I am, and he studied computer science in university, and he would show me how a program works, in his computer. It was awful, very, very bad, at the time, because the technology was really bad. So it was, this black screen, green letters. It was terrible. But the thing is, he was working when, we call the millennium bug reached, and he had to work and, you know in a lot of state infrastructure to make sure that we wouldn't have power outages and things like that. So when he was, working with this and helping that we don't have blackouts or we don't have any issues with water distributions, then I thought, okay, this is really, really cool.
Cool. Any other questions from anyone? Okay, and as we wait, what I'm going to go ahead and do is I'm going to go ahead and share Marsha's LinkedIn. If you all would like to connect with her on LinkedIn. And also, I will also take the opportunity and share mine as well. I'm always looking for speakers for these Power to Fly events. And so please connect with me, and I would love to have you as a guest. All right. Great talk, Marsha. Great session and talk. Thank you so much, Marsha. Oh, you're welcome, Cassiana. Thank you so much for joining us.
Cindy, you were there. She's my mentor.
Oh, awesome. Wow, you have a great support system, Marsha. And that speaks volumes about the type of person you are. Yes. Thank you. Thank you for joining us. Thank you so much. All righty, folks. Well, if there's no more questions, thank you so much for joining us today. And like I mentioned, in a few days, you will receive an email with the link to our session. So you'll be able to view it at your leisure. And please share with someone else that you think may be interested in going into IT. Thank you so much. Bye bye.
Bye.